You probably read the Morning Compass already, but I want to talk about something different today. Not those bombings in Iran, not the inflation, but something that's happening in Europe that I think tells a different story about how governments can choose to respond to migration. This week, Pope Leo traveled to the Canary Islands. These are Spanish islands. They're actually closer to Africa than to Spain and mainland Europe. And they're one of the main entry points for migrants crossing from West Africa by boat. And he went there to meet migrants, also to listen to their stories, but also to lay flowers in memory of those migrants who never made it. Thousands of people have drowned trying to reach those islands. And in 2024 alone, almost 47,000 people arrived on the Canary Islands by sea. It was a record figure. And many others disappeared in the Atlantic. Entire boatloads have just vanished without a trace. Earlier in his trip on Monday, the Pope addressed the Spanish Parliament when he was in Madrid. And he stood before lawmakers and he said that the moral greatness of a nation is shown by how it treats its most fragile people within its borders. And he received a prolonged standing ovation. Now he has traveled to the Canary Islands to a port that became known as the Dock of Shame in 2020. Migrants who arrived there were forced to sleep in the open air. There was nothing but a blanket to sleep under. There were no showers. There was also no legal advice. And some were held there for weeks, far longer than the 72 hours that is the maximum that the law allowed. Spain's ombudsman eventually forced the camp to close. And Pope Leo did not look away from that history. He named it and he made the argument that I just mentioned, and it's one that you don't hear much from political leaders right now. That a society's moral character is measured by how it treats its most vulnerable. Now here's the part that I find most interesting. Spain is doing something that no other Western government is doing right now. It has approved a plan that could grant legal status to around 500,000 undocumented migrants. People who can show that they've been living in Spain for at least 5 months before the end of last year and that have no serious criminal record. They can apply for residence and work permits. So the government's argument is practical, but it's also a moral argument. Spain has an aging population. It has serious labor shortages in key sectors for hotels or construction companies or car workshops. They just cannot find enough local workers. And these migrants are already doing those jobs. They're already living in those communities. Sounds familiar? Legal status recognizes a reality that already exists. So one car workshop manager told the BBC that when they started hiring young migrants, they faced fierce criticism on social media. People were saying that migrants were stealing Spanish jobs. And she said nobody was looking at migrants as persons. But today, the business employs around 30 migrant workers, including a 19-year-old from Ivory Coast who sent several €100 home to his family every month. And then there's Bakary Jaiju from Gambia. He was 19 when he climbed into a wooden boat and he spent 7 days at sea and he was running out of food and water and he didn't dare to sleep because he was afraid he might fall overboard. Well, he survived. He's now in Tenerife. He's learning Spanish. He's trying to build a legal future. But many people who left on similar boats simply never arrived. And I want to be honest about the full picture. The Canary Islands have been overwhelmed at times. There have been relevant debates about pace, about capacity, and the European Union has just agreed a new migration pact that expands fast-track border procedures and it makes it easier for member states to detain and return people who arrive without permission. So Europe as a whole is not at all moving in Spain's direction. But Spain is trying something different. Its government is not treating migration as an invasion to be repelled. It's asking what the economy actually needs, so what the law requires, and it is also asking what basic human dignity demands. And it's trying to build something that answers all three questions at once. And that is not easy. But given what we are watching happening in the United States right now, I think it's really worth paying attention to what Spain is doing.